Hey guys, my name is DividableHalo HD. Welcome back to part 2 of the interview with SaberFear. How are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing amazing.
Yeah,
Ready for this
yeah.
down with the UNSC
Down to the
campaign.
UNSC, yeah. No, it's been a
Oh
solid
yeah.
2 minutes since the last episode was recorded. For you guys, it might be a whole day, a whole 2 days, it might be a whole week, but depending on how well edited.
Right.
But yeah, now we're getting into the fun, juicy part, which is essentially Sentinel. So, SaberFear, what pretty much started Sentinel? How did it all start in the beginning?
So I mean, it all kind of stems back to Terran Federation. That's kind of how I was inspired to end up starting Sentinel, just because of the ineffectiveness of the clan. So I got the group of guys that I started Vast with and was with in the Plague, and we were just like, all right, let's go start up a new clan. Let's give it another shot. This is really our last, like, you know, clan, as we all determined, like, that we're not going to be starting up a new clan. This is going to be it. Sentinel took inspiration from the Vast Special Forces unit, which is Task Force Sentinel, which you can actually look at the Vast channel. You can see our videos, our recruitment videos with them in it, which was kind of like our, I guess you could say, like, that was who Vast was our Special Forces unit. It really, that's what put us up above every other clan, was competitively and in terms of grades. So we wanted to, like, kind of replicate this, and actually, like, even to add on to the inspiration of using Sentinel as the name, back whenever Vast was around, at one point we had a superpower coalition that had Vast, Remnant, Triton, Divine Angels, Ennerai, and Bellicose. And this coalition wasn't really around for long during Vast, which is why I didn't really mention it in the Vast interview, but it kind of foreshadowed the eventual Sentinel as we know it today. So that's what inspired us to start up, and then the Terran Federation really sparked it, or that's what inspired the name, but the Terran Federation kind of situation sparked us to actually start the clan.
Okay, perfect. So essentially, what was the forming of Sentinel? Like, who were the founding members? What was the idea on like how far you would take it and all that?
So the leadership kind of group was myself, Framin, Halianth, Sharp, Tactician, Dark Rider, and even Half Saiyan Blood was a pretty big part of the original foundation. It was, and Halcyon Lente was there too, and even you, DividableHalo, was there at the beginning of Sentinel. So we had, like, a lot of very, um, like, important figures of Fast and the Plague and figureheads within the community already. Um, so that's kind of like who specifically was there whenever we started up. What was the second part of the question?
So what was like the idea? Like, how far were you gonna take Sentinel essentially?
We wanted to kind of replicate the success of Vast, honestly, because, like I said, the name took inspiration from Vast, and we wanted to show the community that it was still possible for a military power to um, take control of the spotlight and potentially move the community back in the right direction. Because at this time, whenever I came back into the community, Trident was the superpowered clan, and Trident was honestly probably the worst, like, influential power that there has been in the entire clan community. The ideology that it stood for was just counterproductive to what the community should be. They were very anti-war. They were very pro-peace. They didn't like to start conflict. They actually never were in a major conflict, which, in my opinion, puts, Trident a lot lower down on, like, a top 10 scale, because they didn't fight any legitimate clans during their time, even though clans like Navcom and Orion Initiative were around. And even though there was a lot of beef between these clans, they never actually got into a conflict, which questions the military capability, in my opinion, of Trident as a whole. So they didn't start any conflict, and on top of that, they pushed for, I guess the only really good implication from Trident was that they decided to push for more fair maps. So that was a good implication on the community, but in terms of the actual like warfare and atmosphere that they created, it was just bad. So Sentinel was kind of created with the purpose of bringing back that vast and that plague mentality of older clans with military dominance, and in this case we were doing it as a military corporation, so that way we could kind of help puppet master conflict and help spark things, because obviously very controversial if Sentinel gets involved in a military conflict, so by providing security or whatnot. So that's pretty much answers your question.
Alright, so essentially Sentinel has a rich history and a rich lore behind its name. Was that something that you thought of during the beginning of Sentinel that you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Vast was, like, I loved the Plague, but Vast was just different. It was different in terms of its dominance and what it was able to do in the stories that I wasn't even able to get into in the first interview just because of, time constraints. But, like, obviously Sentinel was heavily inspired by Vast, because we even had a lot of the same people that helped create Vast to create Sentinel, so it was a big part of creating it and striving to seek that same standard of military dominance that Vast was able to obtain, and obviously getting a little bit ahead, I would say that we not only achieved that, but we actually did a lot better than Vast did. We got into significantly more amount of raids. I mean, even like right now, if you actually add up our total war raid record, it would be 93 wins, 29 losses, and 8 ties. So it's just insane to think that Sentinel has been through literally over 100 war raids, like not just raids in general, because some clans don't even get to that point. Some clans don't even get to the point where they're able to do 100 raids, but for a clan to do over 100 war raids is just insane, and I'm sure we'll get into that in just a second.
Alright, yeah. So with many conflicts within the Sentinel era, what inspired Sentinel to essentially become an insurrectionist clan from the private military era?
So at the time, Sentinel's motto was "it's just business," because we did whatever was business, like what was profitable for us, which means we were kind of like for hire, guns for hire. Like we weren't necessarily loyal to a certain people besides like obviously our allies. So it's kind of like we were in a way plateauing. So like as a clan, we weren't recruiting a lot of members, we weren't necessarily losing members, we just weren't growing, we weren't thriving, or we could be, or what we saw potentially during like Vast. So Fromin one day and I had a meeting with like the rest of our command. We were like, hey, what can we do to really like get things going again? What can we do to spice things up, to make things interesting? So we made kind of a business decision, like it's just business, to go insurrectionist, because it's a more marketable like type of clan. Like it would be more successful because we would have more of a drive and what is our passion. Because at the time it's like, what makes us different from the rest? Like, because there weren't any other insurrectionist clans at the time, so it would make us unique. And as well as I kind of have a history of despising the UNSC community. I mean, going back on Halo Reach, I was one of the main like people behind the insurrectionist versus UNSC war, which I covered on my channel like throughout when I was on MCC, like in 2014, 2015, with Exodus, the Triad Alliance, and the SDA, or Sole Defense Administration. So I just have a long history of despising the UNSC, and I decided, me and Fromin, pretty much suggested by Fromin, was let's go completely insurrectionist. It would give us more of a purpose as a clan. It would make our clan more marketable, and generally it was probably the best decision that we could have made at the time, as we could tell from the results. But yeah, that's what inspired us to go UNSC in a way, from the private military.
All right, exactly. So obviously becoming insurrectionist clan, you're obviously going to start conflicts with UNSC clans. So were there any notable conflicts with the UNSC community that you would like to tell?
Yeah, so I mean, going into the war, we had to strategize on how we were gonna actually attack the UNSC because it's impossible to just say, hey, we're gonna declare war in the community. You know what I mean? We can't just say we're gonna declare war because it's too general. People will view us as like not serious, and people will like generally think that we're joking around or whatnot. So we had to come at it from a unique angle, and instead of just targeting the UNSC community, we made an announcement and we were like, hey, we're an insurrectionist clan now. We are targeting the UNSC. Like, we are not going to stop until every UNSC clan is destroyed. And we didn't say we were declaring war on every UNSC clan. We didn't say we were any of that. We just said we were targeting and that we are now an insurrectionist clan. So what ended up happening with that is we started off our war with the objective of recruiting Wagner 501. And it's funny because in the last minute interview I talked about how we were actually double crossed by Wagner and the commandos, but in Sentinel we wanted to be an insurrectionist superpower, and one of the crucial insurrectionists like of history, one of the crucial insurrectionist forces were the commandos, because the commandos of Exodus were literally the special forces equivalent to Spartan 2s with the UNSC. So we were like, hey, what a better way to be insurrectionists than to recruit the commandos into Sentinel. So at the time, Wagner was leading a clan called Operation Command, and in Operation Command, he he wasn't the leader, he was just one of the leaders. So our objective of the war was to declare war on Operation Command with the objective of essentially recruiting Wagner out of it. So it was like a rescue mission, if you will. Recruiting Wagner, bringing Wagner into Sentinel, and having him start up the commando program again, and making that our special forces unit to go along with Force Recon. So what ended up happening was we destroyed Operation Command. The war ended with 3-0, 3-0. And we actually recruited Wagner into the clan, but he didn't end up starting like commandos because he wasn't active enough, and he ended up leaving the clan later. So while the original objective was failed, Operation Command was how we really started off that war. And funny enough, in the first raid of the war against Operation Command, we got surprise raided by Navcom. So Navcom, while we were setting up the base, because there's like the 5-minute grace period for the war, we were defending Aegis Complex, which is one of our more historic maps made by Heliant. We were defending Aegis Complex, and then they replaced half of their lineup with a full lineup of Navcom. That sparked the beginning of the conflict against Navcom, which obviously everybody knows. Navcom is the strongest UNSC clan that's ever been around. You could even argue that it's one of the, if not the best clan that has been around in the community. So it's like this clan, I think Navcom joining in really legitimized our campaign against the UNSC, because we were fighting the premier clans, because Operation Command was one of the more powerful clans. Because around the time it was like the UNSC community was actually thriving. There was a lot of very like large UNSC clans. There was Operation Command, Settlement Defense Fleet, PERSCOM, Beta Actual, United Nations, Marine Corps, Spec Warcom. There was a lot of pretty big UNSC clans with Navcom included. UNSC Iroquois, Fleet Command. Those are pretty much all the bigger ones at the time. So Navcom, obviously being the biggest, was a big deal for them to enter the war, and whenever they surprise raided us, we decided to declare war on Navcom, because obviously they're surprise raiding us in the middle of a war raid. There's not a reason why we wouldn't declare war. So that began the Navcom war, and I kind of consider in a way the Navcom war and the UNSC campaign as two separate conflicts, because in the Navcom war, the war ended peacefully with a record of 26 wins for Sentinel, 22 losses for Navcom, and 7 ties. that all pretty much eclipsed the amount of raids that were in the entire rest of the UNSC conflict combined. Now, against every other UNSC clan combined, our record was 34 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. So there's just a huge difference between every other UNSC clan in the community, which was 34, 3, and 1, and Navcom, which was 26, 22, and 7. You know, there was even times of the Navcom war where we were leading by a lot, but I'll get more into the Navcom conflict in just a second. I'm going to focus on the rest of the UNSC, like the UNSC Crusade, essentially, that Sentinel was in. So while the Navcom war was going on, which was our main focus, we were also focused on destroying all of the other clans that were in the community. And doing this, we destroyed 14 UNSC clans with combat, which means there were battles fought. We destroyed at least 7, because these are 7 documented clans that we had actually declared war on and were targeting without combat, which means there was not a raid fought. And there were only 2 wars in the conflict that were ended peacefully, which were FleetCom and Navcom. And overall, we won 21 different wars against the UNSC. So we completely devastated the UNSC community. We destroyed every single major power except for Navcom and FleetCom, which ended up working against what we had intended, because our intentions going into the conflict was, hey, we're going to destroy every UNSC clan. But what ended up happening was, by destroying every UNSC clan, they ended up unifying and creating and really making Navcom a significant amount more strong, because Navcom was already strong, but there's a whole bunch of UNSC refugees going into Navcom from the clans we destroyed. So essentially Navcom recruited the entire UNSC community. Like, every valuable member of the UNSC was in Navcom, because these are UNSC kids. Like, UNSC is an ideology, it's not in clans. It's not necessarily like type of clan. Like, a lot of UNSC kids don't want to be military, they just want to be in a UNSC clan, and they just want to be role-playing as a Spartan 2 or whatever it might be. So it was pretty, like, I guess you could say, against our original intention to strengthen Navcom through this war. So Navcom ended up being strengthened, but we ended up destroying the rest of the UNSC community. And like I said, the only clans left after our crusade was ended was FleetCom and Navcom, and both of these clans were pretty strong, as in a way, like, it was unintended by us. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the UNSC conflict. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of surprise raids. It really motivated a lot of our members, and it made things interesting, because there's always new conflicts, there's always drama and whatnot. It was like probably the most fun that I've had in clans, honestly, was having to like strategize all the spies and all of the plans and plotting basically wars, and it was just insane. Like, there, in the history of the clan community, there hasn't been a crusade like this before, and it was truly like impressive that one clan individually was able to accomplish the things that we did. And part of it had to do with a clan known as Aguera. So earlier in the history of Sentinel, there was a clan called Aguera that existed, and it was a very solid group of raiders. We ended up acquiring Aguera. Like, Aguera merged into us and became a city-state, essentially, of Sentinel, or we called it a sector at the time. And Aguera was a huge like factor in this entire crusade. Like, we probably couldn't have been as successful without them. And Aguera we used in a number of ways. Obviously, we used them to supplement our lineups for raids against Navcom. We even up going 4-4, like 4 Sentinel, 4 Aguera guys, and at the beginning of the war, just to show like how important they were. But about halfway through the conflict, the UNSC clans started to hide, and they started to dodge us. What we did was we detached Aguera off of Sentinel, and we said, "Hey, let's start up a rebellion against us." So Aguera forcibly removed itself from Sentinel. essentially declared war, like a cold war on Sentinel, and we started to like beef publicly. But what actually was happening was we were baiting the UNSC clans, because what Aguera did was they went to a whole bunch of UNSC clans. They created a UNSC coalition of all of the clans that were hiding from us, and they were like, hey, let's declare war on Sentinel together. Let's work together to defeat Sentinel. And this is exactly what we wanted. This is what we wanted from the beginning of the conflict. We wanted Sentinel and our allies, which were Remnant, Triton, Traxxas, all the new conglomerate clans, to fight against a UNSC coalition of all the clans. Like, we wanted a massive conflict. We didn't want to just pick out clans one by one, which is ended up what we had to do. We wanted one massive conflict, which ended up being the Navcom conflict in a way, but regardless. So they finally got all these clans in the coalition. They declared war. The coalition declared war on Sentinel. And we essentially, actually, two of the battles that were lost in the UNSC war that were in Navcom, so two of the three were because Aguera was playing for the UNSC side or was supplementing their forces, because what they did was they went on alternate accounts and played for UNSC clans that were against us in order to prove that they were actually against us. And by winning these battles, they were able to prove that they were capable fighters and that they stood a chance, because at the time nobody thought that they stood a chance. Nobody would fuck with Sentinel because they did not want to like mess with our lineup, our raid lineup, or any of our our actual power. So I mean, we were easily above 100 members throughout this entire war, like 100, I would say, active people where we could fill lobbies left and right, like probably 2 lobbies at a time. You know, there was multiple times in the Navcom war where we even offered to do 5 raids against Navcom at a time, just because we knew how deep our lineups were. It was insane. Like, there's no clan in the history of the clan community that could have replicated the power that Sentinel had during this entire campaign. So whenever this coalition was created of the UNSC clans to take on Sentinel, and Aguera ended up pulling out and merging back into Sentinel, all of the UNSC clans in that coalition just crumbled. Like, they were just defeated already. Like, they stood no chance, and we didn't do a single raid against this coalition of UNSC clans because they were all scared out of their minds, because they lost the only hope that they had, which was literally like Aguera. And not only did they lose Aguera from their support, they were having to fight against them too. So it's like, it was a worst case scenario for them. And yeah, that's pretty much the UNSC crusade in a nutshell, without obviously going into specifics, because we could be here for like, I could talk about the UNSC crusade for probably like 2 hours, because I said, there was literally a total of 38 battles against the UNSC. That's not including the Navcom war. Like, that's insane. So
yeah, no, exactly. But one event that kind of happened during the Navcom war was your actual departure from Sentinel for a brief time. I believe leaving Craven in charge of Sentinel. Do you want to go into depth with the decision making and process that went into that?
Yeah, so I enlisted in the United States Army, and whenever I enlisted, obviously life comes first before clans. It was really inconvenient for my clan for me to obviously do this, because I was the leader of the clan, and losing me is a big impact whenever it comes to like the daily function of the clan. And like, during this time, Craven had been probably the most impactful member, aside from Froman, who's been my right-hand man throughout this entire thing, and Helianth. But Craven really stood out because he was able to be like the most active leader of the clan, and not only being able to compete at the highest level, but also being able to lead at the highest level. Like, Craven is probably the most useful member that I've ever had in any of my clans, because he can, not only is he skilled at raids, but he's also skilled competitively, 4v4s, 8v8 knowledge. You know, he knows how to lead raids, he knows how to recruit members, because he recruited a lot of his friends in the clan. He knew how to forge maps. Like, everything clan related Craven was able to do, and he was literally the perfect person to take over for my leadership. Like, I don't think that there was really any other person like in the clan community that would have been capable of leading Sentinel the way that he was able to do it while I was gone, because the original plan was for me to be gone for 2 months, because that's how long basic training is, and then me to go to AIT. But due to unforeseen circumstances, I was actually gone for 8 months of not even having access to my phone. So this made it extremely like more difficult than it was originally intended to be, and but ultimately it ended up working out, and we were able to continue to be a dominant force in the NavCom war with the help of like the entire staff. So that kind of was like behind the decision. I mean, there was like, we could have easily gone into a high command situation, but considering we were at war and we needed quick decisions, and we didn't want things to be clogged up with a high command structure, it was just perfect that he was able to really take control of the clan and lead it as successfully as he was able to. So
all right, so yeah, very much a lot of props towards Craven, obviously, for still being able to, I believe, hold a superpower insurrectionist clan in a span of 8 months, because I don't believe many clans could actually do that, to be honest with you, in my opinion. All right, so essentially, kind of leading towards the end of the NavCom war, what made you decide that everything wanted to go all peaceful?
So, while I was gone, unfortunately, there were some scenarios in the NavCom war that, like, pretty much where one of our members of Sentinel ended up DDoSing one of NavCom's members, and this situation led to NavCom not being able to, like, trust the fact that Sentinel wouldn't DDoS NavCom through the conflict, so they refused to continue the conflict. Like, they refused to do battles, which is pretty understandable looking in hindsight. Like, this member was acting out of his own free will. Like, he did this for like literally no reason. Like, it wasn't like a planned thing. Like, it's not like Sentinel was like, hey, we're gonna order you to do this. No, like this person, Saber Systemic, was just decided to do it on his own free will. From my understanding, because obviously I was like not even around while all of this was happening, which I guess kind of going into this subject, like, one of the big problems that I didn't really get into earlier is that Sentinel was so dominant, like militarily and logistically, that clans had to resort to other tactics in order to beat us. And one of these tactics was network manipulation and DDoSing. Ever since the beginning of the UNSC war, we've been a very big target for DDoSing, and especially our like higher tier members that are in big performing raids. You know, it's been really bad, and unfortunately with DDoSing and network manipulation, it's almost impossible to prove who's behind it, because in order to prove it, you're gonna have to track the packets, and if they have VPNs on the top of VPNs, it's almost impossible unless you're like literally an expert, right? You know, not even like law enforcement agencies are able to truly have that like capability if the person that's doing it is as capable as they were in our scenario. So throughout this entire conflict, our members were getting hit off in the middle of battles, even like just throughout the entire day. Like, Craven was one of the biggest targets. He had to get his router replaced a number of times. He even tried using VPNs. To the point where his VPNs were getting hit, and then he would end up getting hit. So it became very problematic, where some of our members even left the clan because they couldn't like function. Like, the thing is, DDoSing is obviously illegal. So not only that, but if somebody DDoSes you, you lose your entire internet connection. So it's like your entire life is impacted by you just competing in a Halo raid. Like, it became to the point where it was so ridiculous that, like, of impacting everybody's lives, that it would, I mean, if you get hit offline, you're not the only person that's using your internet. There's usually other people in your house, like whether that's a roommate, whether that's your family, whether that's your mom, your dad, whoever it might be. Like there's other people that use the internet that you're on, and if it's unaccessible, then it's just ridiculous that a clan is affecting that. And it came to the point where all of our main people were being targeted, so we had to avoid getting in the same parties. We had to do everything that we could to avoid them from pulling our IPs, but we just honestly couldn't. And it became so bad to the point where while I was gone, because I wasn't around during a majority of this, Sentinel command decided to basically, I wouldn't say create a defense, because they were never DDoSing like as a defense, but they created a team of people who, like with Systemic and with a couple of other people, that was in charge of like kind of tracking the networks. So what they did was they tracked the IPs of our leaders, or the people who were typically targeted, and they helped them install VPNs, for an example, or they were just tracking the IPs to see if they were getting hit. So for an example, if Craven was in a raid, right, and Systemic was monitoring his IP, he could tell if he was getting hit because he could see all the negative packets or the huge increase of packets that were coming towards his router, which would prove that he was getting hit offline. It wasn't just him lagging out, because that's the thing. There's a very big difference between just lagging out because internet sucks, or Halo 5 servers suck, and actually getting hit offline. And it was proven that we were getting hit offline. It wasn't just like an accidental thing or a lag out or somebody just having bad internet, because these people that are in our clan don't just have bad internet, you know, like a lot of the people that were getting hit off have legitimate like fiber, or you know, Google Fiber, AT&T Fiber, like some of the best internet that's available on the market today, and they were still getting hit off. So it just became such a problem. And the thing is, it wasn't happening to Navcom. Like Navcom people weren't getting hit offline. Other UNSC people were not getting hit offline. It was just Sentinel. We were the only people being targeted, and it became a problem to where, like I said, people would leave the clan because of it. And that was honestly our biggest, like, that was honestly kind of like our biggest downfall of like our domination, is because people don't want to get hit offline, right? So that kind of detracted a lot of potential recruits from our clan, because every time that they would join our clan or participate in our events, they would get hit offline, and nobody wants to be in a clan that you just keep getting hit offline. There's nothing that we can do to prevent that. So it's like, it's just a very unfortunate thing, and that's part of the reason why, you know, this community is so terrible nowadays, is because DDoSing has become such a normal thing where it happens in not even just wars, but even in practice raids. Like I personally have had to get 2 new routers over the last like 3 weeks, because my routers were fried to the point where I couldn't even connect to the internet for days on end, like even contacting our ISPs for hours upon the day, like, you know, calling the ISP, calling for customer support, trying to figure out why it's offline, like trying to change the IP, because, you know, some ISPs or some routers don't allow you to just change your IP like simply. You actually have to contact the ISP, and this is especially the case in like European Union, like the EU and like UK. Like they're not legally allowed to change your IP like just over the phone. Like they actually have to come in and do maintenance. So like I've just got a new router literally 2 days ago, because it's been a problem and my whole family hasn't had internet for like a week. And it's just ridiculous that our clan has become that powerful that people have had to target us in that way to defeat us. And I mean, one of the main people behind it is Bound, and his group of people. And it's just unfortunate because it's very difficult to prove, but it's been clear because he's the only common denominator in every single one of these wars. Because that's the thing, it's like Bound and his group of friends literally join whatever clan is at war with us. They joined UNSC clans, they created Banana Brigade, they joined Navcom throughout the entire war. After that, they restarted PNBF, I think they restarted it twice to try to destroy us, and then they just kept hopping between these smaller like clans to try to destroy us. And obviously it's never worked out. They even went to Valor, and now even DEFCON to modern day, which I'm getting like way ahead of ourselves. But yeah, that's pretty much that situation. It's just very unfortunate that our success has been hindered by DDoSing, and that's really the only negative thing in our entire history, and something that is completely out of our control, and it's ridiculous that there's nothing that we can do about it, but that's just the reality of the situation. And despite this, we've still consistently been the best clan in the community throughout, undisputedly through all of 2019. But I would say even to this day, constantly being over 100 members, usually hovering around 200, constantly pulling full lobbies, competing on the highest level in terms of 44s and AP8s. It's just unparalleled what we've been able to do in terms of our success, despite the clear hatred and us being targeted the way we have. So yeah, I think I probably got off way too off track with that question, but
yeah, it's definitely a big topic and something that should be discussed more in this community, as actually it pretty much is discussed in the community on a daily. But yeah, no. Moving on to more lighter notes within Sentinel, what is your opinion on the Sentinel media, on what Z-Mark has been able to do with Sentinel Revelations, or what Sandman's been able to do with our recruitment videos?
It's definitely really cool to see, because pretty much Revelations was a project that he created like throughout the entire time of me being in training, so I actually didn't have much to do with that. That was mostly Craven and Z-Mark. I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, they literally got nominated for awards for like kind of like the Grammy or ESPY or whatever equivalent in the machinima community for voice acting and performances, so that's like super cool that we've been able to do that. Also even making it onto Halo Waypoint on one of the community spotlights on there, so it's like the way that our media has been able to evolve has truly like put us past just a clan, because now we've had machinimas and interact 343 community, which even go into our forging, because we have not only great media in terms of like Z-Mark and Valor or Sandman with the videos and recruitment videos and machinimas, but also forging in the aspect of Flicker and Res Viper and Craven, who have been in contact with 343 like community forgers and even 343 forgers themselves. Like it's just super cool that we've been able to interact with 343 Industries in a way that no clan has truly been able to do before. I mean, we even had 343 Industry like forgers look at our raid maps, like legitimately like we took them on. There was like one time whenever right before I left for training actually, I was with like a whole party of the forgers, and we were taking them through our maps, and they ended up even building maps for us, and we were even testing invasion for them whenever Flicker was making that. So it's very integrated in terms of our relations with 343, and we continue to try to strive and improve on those relations, and potentially going on to Halo Infinite having an even bigger impact on the community as a whole, and not just the Halo clan community. So I think that's something that Sentinel does unique that no other clan does, is try to expand our borders beyond just Halo clans, just the Halo clan community. So
exactly. So obviously moving on into the future of Sentinel, is there any big projects or foreseeable things that you could see happening with the clan?
I mean, right now, as we're speaking, we're actually working on establishing a high command structure, because I'm going to be essentially retiring from the Halo clan community pretty soon, so there's going to need to be a succession. And with this high command structure, it's intending for Sentinel to last for forever. I mean, continue to be passed down through the generations of Halo clan kids, I guess you could say, in a weird kind of way, because you never know how long Halo however long they're going to be making Halo clans should be however long Sentinel's going to be around. The same way Navcom's still around today. It's like, even though Navcom is a completely different clan than it was 8 years ago, it's still around and it still holds similar to those values. And that's kind of the goal, is to be one of those ancient like community titans, like the superpower, and continue to uphold our standards and push for what we believe in the community, or what Sentinel High Command views as what the community should be. So yeah.
Alright. Is there any notable events that happened in Sentinel that you want to express before moving on?
I mean, on top of the UNSC war, after the UNSC campaign, we ended up getting into a number of other conflicts against clans like Pantheon, PNBF, Horizon, National Reichist Imperium, Westeros, Icarus, a lot of these clans, and similar to the result of the UNSC campaign, we destroyed them. I think the biggest event that happened after the UNSC campaign was the new conglomerate versus Safeguard war. So after coming off of this huge UNSC campaign, obviously Sentinel was like, we had accomplished what we had wanted to accomplish. We destroyed every UNSC campaign except for literally 2. Like, there were no UNSC clans around. So obviously the only other clans left were actual clans. So like I continue to make clear in this interview, the state of the community has been terrible for a very long time, and unfortunately there's only so much you can do to influence the change of the community, being the superpower of the clan community. And we've tried to improve it as much as possible, but there's still a lot of those clans that negatively impact the community. So what Sentinel did was we gathered all of the clans that we viewed that negatively impacted the community, which were Divine Angels, Death Legion, Valor, Icarus, Federation, Westeros, and Flying Flamingos. And we got them all into a community meeting and we killed them all in front of the entire community. We slaughtered them. And by slaughtering them, we proved that how broken this community is, because literally like 2 to 3 years ago, the reaction to this would have been unanimously, alright, we're going to war. Like, how dare you embarrass us? How dare you like fire upon my men in a community meeting? But instead what happened was Valor and Divine Angels got together and they created the Safeguard, which was essentially like, hey, we're going to protect all of your clans. You don't have to actually fight in a war. Like, you guys should dodge. You guys should dodge the war. You shouldn't actually fight Sentinel. You should just run away. Valor and Divine Angels, we will protect you guys. So we'll fight the war. You guys won't be involved. We're just going to protect you guys. So they created that Safeguard alliance, and then there was the war between the new conglomerate and Safeguard, which ended up being voided for the very reasons that I was just discussing, DDoSing. So guess who joined the Safeguard whenever we declared war? Bound, obviously. So Bound joins, and in the first 2 raids of the war, we had 13 individual members of Sentinel being DDoSed. 13. Keep in mind, we used a similar lineup for both raids. So we had to sub in people mid-raid. We had to sub in, like, especially the second raid. The second raid was worse because we were defending. The first raid wasn't so bad because we were attacking, and they used an overpowered base, so it was like, why would they need to DDoS us? But whenever we were defending, it was a huge problem. We actually literally were defending the base with 4 people at one point. And you had our MVP of the raid, Zifi, killing everybody with a railgun. Then we ended up winning that defensive raid. But it became to the point where the DDoSing was so ridiculous that we were unable to actually conduct the war, and that's because Bound and his goons that were recruited into Valor. I'm not saying that Valor or Divine Angels actually had malicious intent in DDoSing us, but they clearly recruited people that they knew were high threats, and they knew were going to DDoS us because they were desperate, and that they knew that they couldn't beat us without actually having Bound and his his DDoSing gang DDoS us. So essentially were able to, I guess you could say, pussy their way out of a fight by DDoSing us, which is just a perfect example of how broken the community is. That not only did half of these clans dodge us, like Westeros, Icarus, Death Legion, Flying Flamingos, they all dodged the war up until literally like a week ago when Flying Flamingos finally decided that they would conduct battles after like 3 months of being at war. They're like, alright, yeah, we'll finally do battles. Guess who Flying Flamingos recruited into their clan? Bound. Literally Bound was recruited into their clan again. So Bound is probably the biggest component of this whole DDoSing situation. So really, that's the biggest event that happened after, was the new conglomerate and Safeguard. While I was gone, there was a triumvirate created between like a couple of clans and Sentinel and the GRA, but that would be something that should be covered by like Craven if you ever do an interview with him. But I don't really know too much about that, so I'm not going to speak on it because that's not really part of. I don't want to like misconstrue what actually happened,
exactly.
but.
All right, so more or less diverting towards the end of the interview, is there really anything you want to say? I'm pretty much just repeating the last question I asked, but one question for me is, how do you feel to be one of the most influential leaders within the clan community, leading a clan that's been going on for this long, leading a clan like Vast that has been very influential during the Halo 5 days, and then also leading Plague?
I would just have to say, like, it feels like I feel like accomplished, that I was able to really obtain everything that I wanted to get out of this experience. Like, I created, in my opinion, the greatest clan that's ever been created, and obviously that could be debated throughout the history of the clan community, but I personally believe that Sentinel is the best clan and has accomplished more than any other clan in even just this like 2 to 4 year window. Depending if you consider Vast a part of us or not, but really, like, accomplished, I feel like, is the best word to describe it, just because everything, like, that you can do in the community, I feel like I've done. Like, I've created a clan, and I've made this great group of people, and really, it's not just me. Like, I could not have done this without every single one of the leaders and members that's been in Sentinel through its entire history, because that's the big difference between Sentinel and Vast, or Sentinel and the Plague, is that Sentinel is a well-oiled machine. It's a titan that can last even without me, and that is the most important thing for me, is continuing the legacy of Sentinel while I'm no longer here, while I'm no longer an active participant, because I've created this clan and this this essentially organization that's going to be able to continue on without me. So that's, I think, that's my biggest success, and that's the thing that I'm the most proud of. But like I said, I could not have done it without like my entire command team. I mean, going from Craven, who was able to lead the clan for 8 months while I was gone and impact it in crazy ways while I was even still here. You know, Framen being my right-hand man throughout the entire thing, Allianth being like probably the most trusted member besides Craven and Framen, obviously. You know, going even into the new leadership of like Snapshot, and now even the Commandos, which is funny to think about the history with the Commandos, but now the Commandos are with Sentinel, and being the insurrectionist superpower that we strove to be like over a year ago. You know, with Tanex now in part of that leadership staff. I mean, Flicker being a big part, Flexi, I mean, Purger being like the war juggernaut. There's just so many people like that have been with the clan, like Dark Rider, 250, Sharp, Tactician, even you, Dividable. Like, I could probably name like 50 people that have impacted Sentinel and its success. You know, Calculated, Benno, even. Like, we've had so many people, like Domertrons, like I'm just like naming people off the top of my head. Like, there's so many people that have been in Sentinel. I mean, we've probably like recruited like yeah, it's like there's just so many people that I could credit, but you know, I couldn't have done it without them. Like that's my biggest thing is that I could not have created such um, an amazing group of people without the people that are in that group, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm proud of what I've done, but at this point there's nothing else to do. Like there's nothing else to accomplish. Like what am I gonna do? Continue to lead this clan for the next 20 years of my life? No. Like I have to move on. I'm starting to get older, and it's time for me to finally retire and let my legacy live on in ways that hopefully um, are impactful. So.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Honestly, yeah, it was a good run, honestly. But yeah, with that being said, is there anything you'd like to say to the clan community? Are you gonna be essentially around like how JB is, being in and out, giving his opinion, or are you just done in general?
Um, I think a lot of the times that people say they're retiring from the community doesn't actually happen. So I'm gonna clarify what it means in my retirement. I mean, we're gonna release a whole video about like more going into more depth, but I pretty much covered most of the reasons like within this interview. But um, I would say I'm retiring from the clan community, but I'm not necessarily retiring from Sentinel. So I'm going to be around the clan, and I'm going to be around the people because I've developed friendships with a lot of the people that are in this clan that are going to last for forever. Because I mean, Xbox is going to be around forever, and Halo is going to be around forever. So I still plan to play Halo Infinite. I mean, I'm about to leave on March 30th to go back into training for the military, so I'm not actually going to have an Xbox for another 8 months. But whenever I come back, I'm still going to be playing Halo. I'm still going to be playing with Sentinel, and I'm still going to serve as kind of like an advisor of sorts. So I'm still going to be around in Sentinel, but I'm not going to be in the clan community. I'm not going to be in any community chats. I'm not going to be taking a part in any foreign affairs. I'm not going to be leading raids. I'm not going to be associating with any clans or the community at all because I just despise the clan community, honestly. I love Sentinel. I love the atmosphere and the clan and the legacy that we've created and what we've accomplished in the history and the lore and everything about it, but I just despise the clan community. It's full of cowards who just want to sit on Discord all day and not actually play Halo, which is what the community is actually about. And now I'm just going to take a back seat and let Sentinel run its course, and if it, you know, if for whatever reason it ends while I'm gone or ends while I'm no longer here, then that's the end. Then at that point I will no longer be in the Halo clan community because my time being here will be determined by Sentinel's time being here. Because like I said, I'm, you know, becoming an adult, so I'm not going to be focusing on this anymore, and that's what it means for me to actually retire from the Halo clan community is that aspect. So.
Alright, so yeah, no, thanks again, SaberFear, for this interview. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This will probably be the official last SaberFear interview, or
Definitely.
Vast Contagion, or Z4 Bros interview. Honestly, though, there might be maybe a Saber Z4 interview, Z4 Junior, if he lives up to the hype.
My legacy's carried on.
Carry on the legacy,
yeah.
indeed.
You're the blood,
yeah.
the bloodline.
Yeah, if you're watching this, you're the bloodline, alright? Alright, anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Carry on the legacy.
Yeah. Once again, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys all later. Bye.
Down with the UNSC.